Okay, listen, I'm gonna get rocking on this. You're all very welcome to the 8:59. We're starting a whole pile of sort of programs where we're doing lots of stuff online now, and we've got another 2 lined up for the next 2 weeks, and we'll be doing more. The format for today is going to be based upon our usual mindshare. We're going to break into rooms very shortly, and I'd like you all, please, also to share any insights, links, sort of references, as well as any notes or any sort of succinct wisdom in the chat area, as well as in the conversations you're going to have. And we're going to have an evaluation form at the end. There's already a link to the evaluation page that Polly has set up in the chat area. So before we do anything else, could I ask you please to go to the chat, copy that link into your browser, and be ready immediately after this 8:59 to complete the evaluation form. Polly and I need as much information as we can get from you guys and from the members generally to make sure that we're going to be doing the right thing the right way for you. Okay, so please do copy that link into your browser and add as much information as you can, please, so that we can build on what we're already doing. So 8:59, most of the people here know the protocol. We know the framework. Online, what we're going to do is we're going to I'm going to pose the general sort of questioning, and then we're going to quickly break into rooms, probably less than 20 minutes, just less than 20 minutes for a first conversation, randomized group, and then 10 minutes back into plenary, and then we'll repeat that cycle, and then a few minutes in wrap up. I would ask you to, as we go through, you know, keep your conversations very straightforward. No theory, all practical stuff. What are you working on? What are you struggling with? What are you winning with? And try to get as much as possible high value information to the people that you're sharing the room with. So what I was thinking, and it struck me, it's always struck me, okay, so this idea of having sort of a team hasn't been enough for me for a number of years. And I think that really good teams go beyond being teams, and really good teams go beyond just collaborating really well. And really good teams go beyond, you know, protocol and technology, and they go beyond the hard stuff, which they must do excellently. And it struck me that all the people that I see as sort of international role models, as well as many friends, you know, that all of us will know, we're not just building and working within teams, not just collaborating. There is a big difference between those companies who have a real esprit de corps and those companies who are just good at working well together to get stuff out the door, okay? And I would like us all to talk about what do we think esprit de corps is. So how would you define esprit de corps? How do you know when you're experiencing it, that you're in it? And how do you build and nurture? And more importantly, how do you defend the esprit de corps that you're building within your businesses, or you're building within your network? So that's the sort of the thrust of the conversation. Are we clear on the thrust of the conversation? Thumbs up. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Excellent. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break you all into rooms. It's randomized rooms. So we'll have some people employing a ton of people. We'll have some people employing themselves. So I'm just going to get us into the rooms. So here we go. I will jump into one of your rooms maybe, and I will sort of just listen in. I might throw a comment in, and I will also, I'm just going to bring that down actually. I'm also going to give you a 2-minute timer before, before the end of your room meeting, so that we can come to a conclusion. Same rules as in the 8:59. Just nominate someone who's going to share one insight from your room, and then add anything else from your conversation into chat, please. And just for reinforcement, I am going to be recording this meeting. Okay, I'm going to throw you into rooms. Bang. So you're all been allocated into rooms right now. Okay, so I think we've got everybody back into the plenary right now, and in usual fashion, room the first, less than 1 minute, please, your key insights, and please also do be adding information, insights, anything that is going to be useful to anyone, add it into the chat. First room, go please.
Okay, well, interestingly enough, what epitomizes the Esprit de Corps? It's called Richard Maybury. What we felt: openness, honesty and compassion, ownership of leadership, beliefs and purposes for the full team, and most importantly, communication, communication, communication. We talked about the banks, the fact that the people in the branches were not being talked to by the board, with the exception of Metro, which is making a point where the directors have been talking to all the members in all the branches on a daily basis. The rest of the banks, no such thing. And in terms of communication, again, we talked about Richard Branson and his rather foolish comments, which we felt was very unusual for Richard, because he built up fantastic Esprit de Corps historically and threw it all away in a type comment. That's us.
Okay, thank you. Room the next.
Can I go from table 2?
Go.
So table 2, I think we felt Esprit de Corps is kind of wrapped up very much in culture and the idea of working and pulling together, right down to being represented perhaps even by us all wearing uniforms, sort of matching polo shirts, but this kind of thing, that it brings us all together, that it's something that perhaps comes from within and is eventually codified or written down, but that ideally that writing down, that codification, should be a process of engagement with all the participants. It's a question of what we think the Esprit de Corps is, rather than, or the company values and kind of ethos is not something that's necessarily imposed on people. That is perhaps a certain amount of dissension, disagreement is a benefit, that it's not necessarily a bunch of robots all kind of spouting the same mission statement, but that it's quite important that there is a personal kind of bond and synergy between the members of a team, that they need to like each other, and that actually you could be brilliant at your job, but if you don't fit in on a personal level, you're not going to be part of that team. You're not going to buy into the Esprit de Corps. Or as Dominic tells us, the All Blacks have a rule, which is no dickheads. Which
great book. Great book. Okay, room the next.
Thanks, Simon.
All right, we'll jump in here then. So for us, Esprit de Corps, it's a level of emotional intelligence. It's a people thing, and it transcends the sort of systems and processes that are in place. And the sort of pivot is where everyone in that team is aligned in their values and their cause, to a point where actually they put that before themselves. There's something selfless about it. And that's the sort of pivot to where you've got Esprit de Corps. And if you've got it in place, the organization will cope with anything, the good or the bad, because your driving force is you will not let your colleagues or your peers down. And it comes from values, it comes from from respect, actually, respect that everyone has got a role to play and that they know that role and that they're the expert in it. Those were the sorts of things that came out in our discussion.
Cool, excellent. Room the next.
Okay, we'll go for room 3 then. We had a conversation that focused very much around a question that Sabani asked, which was, how do you know when you've got it in a team? We thought that was a nice perspective to come from. And we thought that you actually know when people really care and have a shared belief for the project based around a shared vision and a clear vision. Everyone in the group feels that they're listened to, and your team meetings are to get to know the people and their life outside, not just share about the work. So people are therefore, they build a trust within each other, have a sense of shared value around the project, and they're prepared to even challenge management more because of what they believe as a shared group, rather than just go with the flow, because ultimately the whole group wants to deliver their best towards that common goal.
Mm-hmm. Cool, cool. Room the next, thank you.
I was room 5, Richard. We had a very interesting discussion, much the same as everybody else. Communication, tell the story, make sure everybody knows what the story is, have some feedback, have consistent values that everybody knows. And one of my sound bites is always collaboration, not confrontation. Mm-hmm. We had the word synergy earlier, which we defined as the sum of the whole is greater than sum of the parts, such that together the team, another Paul soundbite, together everyone achieves more. And we thought it was important that everybody knew their rules and responsibilities. We spoke about F1 and cycling. Selflessness has already been mentioned. But to cap it all off, we thought that to have true Esprit de Corps, you needed to have fun and celebrate your success and act as one.
Yeah, and I think that fun element certainly does come into it. Have we done all rooms? I think we have, haven't we? Excellent. Okay, so yeah, I think that fun thing does come into it, and I think we can take a lot of inspiration from teams. The All Blacks. The All Blacks book, I've got it, I'm looking for it on my shelf. I've probably taken it out somewhere, but that's an excellent book. And, you know, British cycling, of course, you know, there's a number of teams that we can go to find excellence. And I just dipped into one of the rooms, and the question was being posed, well, what about Ronaldo then, you know, and what about that massive ego and that disruptor, but still being valuable? And that's going to be the sort of the topic for the next breakout, in a way. I've come up with a number of attempts to define Esprit de Corps. And they're all very clever, but I think you can't go much better than the Oxford English Dictionary's definition. I'm just going to read it out for you guys. It's a feeling of pride and mutual loyalty shared by members of a group, not by members of a team, not by anything, just members of a group. So it implies that a group of people, a disparate group of people, can come together to build this Esprit de Corps. So we're going to break out again into rooms, and this time it will be great if we could deal with some of the practicalities of what you would have to do, what you could do to defend the Esprit de Corps that you're trying to nurture and build in your business. So we'll continue the conversation about Esprit de Corps, but I'd like the focus to be around what do you have to be mindful of, and what do you have to defend, what's acceptable and not, and how would you deal with the fallout if you had to, and in practical terms, not theory, but in practical terms, if you had to make that difficult decision about, you know, personality or individual versus the esprit de corps that you're looking to build and extend into the future. So another sort of 15, 18 minutes. I'm going to bang you all into your rooms. Andy, you're out already.
Oh, I'm not. I just click. It's like, right, let's go back. My group returning.
We're still here. We're on the main screen, but we're still together. There you go.
Yeah,
You're still there, Adrian.
we've obviously talked less than the other groups.
Everybody else needed all those seconds to formulate their views, you see.
Yeah.
Or
we've
even
already
to draw,
developed these
or even
speed
to
of-
draw some great views together into a final coherent 50 seconds.
How are you, Richard?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, great. Glad to be
How are
here.
things in sunny Shepperton?
Yeah, things are pretty good actually. So can't complain about being so busy. So.
No, no, and at least you're not flying over to America and doing crazy things like that at the moment.
Not at the minute. So, I've got my Dettol ready for injecting. So.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, you know, if you believe what the Don says, you don't need anything, mate. You just need to just get on and get busy and work hard, and the virus won't catch you.
Yeah.
Because he knows everything about you know, pandemics. Anyway, we are all back in the room, so excellent. And in time-honored tradition, we're going to start with room the first.
Okay, honesty, integrity, celebrating achievements, using the we language, not the I language, and leading by example and having a group ethos, not a personal dictatorship.
Cool. And did you come up with anything that you would be doing to defend that, you know, and probably defend it against somebody who might be seen as important within the group anyway?
It was more a matter of looking at individual members of one's team to ensure that they understood the group ethos, and to quote one of our members, if they, when you recruit somebody, if they're not right, get rid of them within the probation period.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool stuff. Room this next.
Okay, I'll speak for room 2. So we were kind of mostly speaking about what happens to your esprit de corps when the shit hits the fan, as it were, and that actually it's very often easy to have a notional esprit de corps when everything's going hunky-dory and well, and that actually what happens when things are going badly is when esprit de corps really comes to the fore. And that's when you sort of really get to see people in their true light. We were sort of talking about how we're seeing sort of various maybe suppliers, clients behaving differently in response to the crisis. And that actually that's the sort of thing that's going to be remembered. And that also leads into the idea that there is a wider esprit de corps between, not just between the members of an individual company, but between a company and its suppliers, its partners, and its clients, and that actually that you can see an esprit de corps developing between these disparate groups of people who all see a common purpose. We quoted or had Dominic reminded us of a quote which I never know whether it's true or apocryphal of the NASA janitor sweeping the floor, asked what he's doing. He said, "Oh, I'm helping to put a man on the moon," and that, if you like, encapsulates the esprit de corps, which led us to. And it sounds like a lot of people have seen this, the podcast called 13 Minutes to the Moon, which is absolutely brilliant BBC series, which covers both the Apollo 11 and Apollo 13. And in those, you get a real essence of how a team under crisis and with a common purpose performs. So James sort of finished with a really good quote, which was, "Never waste the opportunity of a crisis," that actually, in some ways, a crisis can be made positive because of this way it reveals the true esprit de corps.
Absolutely, and I I would ask, and in fact, I've been asking some people in workshops I've been running online a question something like, what would you want people to be saying about you in how you delivered during the Corona crisis?
Yeah.
And depending upon the groups I'm working with, what have you learned and developed with the opportunity that you had during the Corona crisis? And I think you know, when we're under challenge, that's when we can actually learn really, you know, learn lessons better actually, because we have to, in a way. Room the next.
Okay, room 3. Okay, so we focused in on one thing that can be a real challenge to Esprit de Corps, particularly in times like we're in currently, which is body language. We don't realise how much we rely on that in meetings quite often, and in group settings. And of course, it's perceived so much more easily and quickly in person. And we sort of recognised that we don't actually realise until now how much of our relationship with certain individuals in groups is built around the informal time that we've had face-to-face meetings in offices and so forth. And now that all needs to be built remotely, it becomes even more important with people that you might be working with now that you didn't previously know. And it makes getting to know the person, not just the project, the person, the environment, the challenges that they're facing, even more important in the current world. And so finding new ways to interpret body language was quite often the key to a successful group that's acting remotely. And some of the things that were suggested were things like the speed of response to questions in groups, the enthusiasm that someone's showing for a topic in discussion, or the tone of voice, things like that, which become substitutes, if you like, or different forms of body language to look out for.
Yeah, and we must be very, very careful around that stuff, because that speed of response and everything else can be misplaced. In my experience, can be misplaced because people can see that as a substitute, and then we get back onto the old treadmill that people were on, and many people still are on, with I've got to get this email answered, you know, within the next few minutes. And we mustn't allow a speed of response to become a sort of a substitute for that sort of informal sort of conversation and informal sense of being together that we're all deprived of at the moment. And I think there's a big thing between communication and connectivity. And what I'm finding is that lots of people are losing out on the connectivity, that informal human interaction stuff. They're having all the Skypes and all of the Zooms and all the Teams meetings and everything else, but they're missing out on that informality or bumping into somebody in the office. Table the next.
Right, table. There were sort of 3 areas we looked at. First thing was within a high-performing team, it's not just knowing your job, it's knowing other people's jobs. So you cite the All Blacks, everyone knows what everyone else is doing and roughly how they're thinking, so they feed each other.
Yeah, Legacy, great book.
Yeah.
Great book.
The second point was you've really got to know everyone in the group and identify early where the disruptors and where it's going wrong. Then you've got to understand why, and then you've got to act. And it could be from re-rolling, just telling them, or you get down the more formal HR process. But you must act once you've identified and understood their perspective on what the problem might be. And then the third thing we looked at is how often do we as organisations actually reflect? Don't go away on team building, actually reflect on how are things doing, not just post-project, but actually take time to sit down and get it all out in the open.
Absolutely, absolutely. Solid, solid, solid. Room the next.
All right, so room 5, we had a sort of started off with a rugby themed discussion as well. And we were talking about Sir Clive Woodward's philosophy that talent alone doesn't win. And in particular that I was wondering whether that had happened. And in particular, if you've got, you know, someone very talented individual, don't be afraid if they don't fit in with your team to discuss with them that they might no longer be, it might not no longer be in their interests as well as your interests for them to leave and move on. Sometimes people might be hanging in there, but actually the best thing for their career is to move on as well, and it's the best thing for you. So that's kind of...
absolutely, and doing that the right way sort of leaves a legacy, if you will, with the person who's moving on, and certainly protects what you're trying to build within your Esprit de Corps. Do we have another room to report? I haven't been ticking them off, sorry. No, we haven't. Okay, all right. Okay, so we rock on. Thank you very much for all those contributions, guys. Please do consider adding anything else to the chat, any links or anything else to the chat. I am reminded, and some of you will have heard this before, I'm reminded of Jack Welch's sort of comment about values, which of course form one part of building an Esprit de Corps. And what Welch always said was that values are nothing but individual itty bitty bits of behavior that are so transparent they leave nothing to the imagination. And I think if we're building Esprit de Corps, if we're going beyond mere collaboration, then we need to be absolutely transparent in everything that's important to us and defend that to the hilt. And in one of the rooms I dipped into, they were talking about what would you do with Ronaldo, which is why I mentioned it in the prelude to that last last table topic session. And somebody mentioned, just as I was coming out, somebody mentioned it's not just what they do on the field that's really important, but it's how they behave in the training sessions, how they behave with the other members of the team, and whether that is valuable or not. And then you've got to if that's really valuable, forget Ronaldo, but if that's really valuable, then you've got an even harder decision to make, haven't you, about somebody who might be taking limelight and putting their head above the parapet a bit, and maybe if they're contributing massively as well behind the scenes, then that's something you've got to sort of manage and massage a little bit. But listen, thank you so much for coming on through. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I do see that there's some more flashings going on in the chat. So any last minute elements, just bang into the chat area. That would be useful. Do feel free to get in touch with any of our ambassador team. We're all here to help each other. We're building an Esprit de Corps in Surrey, I think, around our IoD membership. And feel free to get a hold of me at any time. Feel free to get hold of any of our ambassadors. And I'll particularly give Clive a mention over at Oakleaf. It is tough, and it's great to have good conversations with people you trust and you sort of want to sort of share those challenges with. Clive can be very useful in terms of signposting or even listening around challenges that we're all having. And then finally, some parish notices. We've got some further webinar type events lined up, and we've got Alex Sanderson on Monday. There's still room to get in. I think we're up to 19 or 20 onto that. We don't want very many more, but if you want to jump into that, email Polly now. Emma Pendry is going to be talking with us about risk management on the 4th of May. If you think you've got a subject that you would want to share some sort of senior insights on, then drop me a note and we'll see if we can get that into the agenda for Surrey and the South. Do please complete your evaluation form because it would
Richard,
be
we didn't get the, sorry to interrupt, Richard, we didn't get the link.
I put it back in again. Let me have a look.
So whereabouts is that?
I'll copy it in again. Let me see if I can copy it in again. Yeah, it is. It's up there somewhere. Hang on.
Did you be accidentally send it to one person instead of everyone?
No, I don't think so. Here we go. No, it went to everybody. It went in at 8:11, but I'm going to copy it and I'm going to bang it in here again. Has everyone got that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, guys, rock on. Have a wonderful day. Look after each other. Stay safe. Stay strong. And support each other. And we'll be meeting again. Certainly, some of us might be meeting on Monday for Alex's. I've seen his presentation. Alex has built companies. He knows what he's talking about. You know, I commend Alex's sort of presentation to you. I'm certainly looking forward to it. So with that, stay safe, stay strong, and have a great day.